Hi, everyone, and welcome to our conversation about how to govern an innovative workforce and reduce shadow IT. I'm Kamila Klimek, Product Manager for Enterprise Governance for AppSheet here at Google Cloud, and I'm joined by Jacinto Pelayo, CEO of Eventbytes. Jacinto?
Thank you, Kamila. Well, Eventbytes is a company specialized in digital transformation. We are Google Cloud partners, Google Workspace partners, and AppSheet partners, even before Google incorporated it to the portfolio. We love it for a long time already.
All right, so let's start with shadow IT. Shadow IT is a widespread problem. Research shows that even up to 40% of an organization's total spend is consumed by shadow IT ecosystems, and each of these systems is a potential threat to the company's data security. At the same time, simply saying no new tools is not a realistic solution, as everyone is under pressure to innovate. Up to 51% of executives predict that inability to adapt to digital transformation will result in going out of business within the next 3 to 4 years. That's where tools like AppSheet come in. They allow the organization's employees to develop custom apps and automation, eliminating the need for random third-party services. With that comes the need for vetted governance tools and practices that will allow you to manage and monitor how this innovation happens. So today, we will talk about how the right no-code tools can enable that innovation in a secure environment and bring that shadow IT to light. No two organizations are the same. So the first thing to consider is how the no-code tool fits within your organization. The fundamental step that will shape your governance environment is deciding what approach you will take to the rollout and who your adopters will be. So in any no-code environment, the adopters will fall into one of the 3 categories: administrators, app creators, and app users. Administrators are the ones who will determine the experience for the rest of the team. They will set the team's policies, they will manage membership, they will monitor usage and control shared resources such as app templates or data sources. Having these roles clearly defined will then help you choose the rollout model that is right for you, either group by group or organization-wide. In a group by group rollout, a small subset of an organization, for example, one specific team, will get access to the new no-code tool. This will allow for a more decentralized governance model where each team has a dedicated administrator, which allows admins to customize policies, share data, shared app templates, and the environment overall based on that team's unique needs. In an organization-wide rollout, everything is more centralized. It will enable everyone at the same time. It has central administrator who control the entire organization, and it will apply uniform policies across the company. The shared resources are also made broadly available. Jacinto, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Companies can define with AppSheet the tailored rollout strategy based on their needs, but what could be a good rollout strategy? Company size or business type don't make any difference when defining a rollout strategy. In fact, it could make sense that AppSheet rollout follows the same philosophy than the rest of IT services or company collaboration mindset: open or restricted by default, centralized or dispersed, fully managed service or spontaneous governance. Ensure to have good resources to apply the good rollout strategy. It is not the same to manage rollout by a centralized team than enable teams in different locations or different languages. Also, we should think as well what kind of employees does my company have. Shadow IT is very linked to employees' initiatives. We could empower those users to be AppSheet creators all around the company, or limit their initiative and drive them into a centralized, governed model. We can suggest a couple of strategies, and those can be adapted to each company's preferences. Flexible rollout strategy will focus on employees' empowerment, taking their innovation and initiatives directly to the field. They will be able to prototype and use the application with a small population. When publishing the app to a wider audience, we will always recommend the validation step. A virality wave could be expected when employees realize on how helpful and easy those solutions are. The second approach will be a managed rollout strategy, where the employees will request the application creation to a central team. based in specifications. This central team will take care of the complete life cycle of the application. This could be a more traditional approach, bringing control in the application ecosystem, rationalizing its usage, but also standardizing some processes, but probably not so impactful in terms of shadow IT's replacement. Of course, hybrid strategies can also be defined. Kamila?
Yeah. So one of the biggest advantages of no-code tools is that they will allow you to leverage your data where it already is. Instead of hosting it natively, many tools, including AppSheet, connect to your data where it is already stored. So they leave it in full control and under your existing Sentry tools, instead of having it duplicated between multiple third-party systems. Because of this, securing it becomes pretty straightforward. So first, you want to think about which data sources your app creators can use and which they can't. And you will have visibility into it, and you can block the unwanted connectors if you'd like to. You also want to think about opening up integration and automation between multiple systems, which your app creators will be able to do, again, without having to replicate the data. And lastly, think about which data to open up as a shared source so your app creators can collaborate on them without needing to have individual authentication access. Jacinto, what do you think?
Data is key. Using the data correctly is a must. Companies' data sources is one major asset. With them, we will ensure our data is consistent across all applications, automations, and processes. Using data sources will help us to simplify the creation of the applications, to avoid duplication of data, to avoid errors, or also to reduce obsolete data. How to work with data sources? We should create and maintain a catalog identifying the possible data sources. Define each of them if the access is read-only or if the data flow is bidirectional and we are allowed to read and write. Define permissions and usage based on data sensitivity. We can have public and open data sources for topics like company locations, products, but also we can have restricted ones and manage them via groups.
Yes, one of the main concerns about enabling non-developer employees to build apps is how secure can those apps be? So the difficulty in securing traditionally developed apps is that basically each change in code needs to be reviewed individually for potential vulnerabilities. With no-code tools that are declarative, you can block those unwanted configurations right out of the gate, customizing the environment that is available to your app creators. This allows you to define the governance model early on and then assure that your app creators are operating within a secure environment from the very start. Where to start with policies? If security is your priority, start with no access and grow from there. It's easy to open permissions when your app creators request them and you've had a chance to review them, rather than remove undesirable ones after they're already in use. With this approach, you will also want to make sure that you are still enabling your app creators, because if you build an environment that is too stringent, it's almost not much better than no environment at all. Let's go ahead and see what the policies look like in AppSheet. Here's what your app creators and admins will see when they log into AppSheet. It's the main control panel from which they can create apps or manage their account. My Team is the admin panel offering an overview of what's going on in the organization. It allows to monitor the app creators, usage, and billing. It also allows to manage the policies. One of the very basic steps in building a secure environment is making sure that you have visibility into and control over who the apps are shared with. We can do that through requiring sign-in, so let's create a policy. Your environment comes with several policy templates that you can enable in a few seconds. Their goal is to cover most common security and compliance scenarios that you can enable out of the box. Requiring sign-in is one of them. I'll go ahead and create a new policy. The policy expression is pre-written, so I don't have to customize anything. I do have the ability to customize how the policy is enforced. I can choose to set it up as a warning, in which case the app creator will be able to proceed, or as an error, which means it will be auto-enforced where possible, or the app will be disabled until it's in compliance again. Now, failure message will show up to app creators who are out of compliance with the policy. So you want to make sure to make it descriptive so they can take an action on them. Let me save this policy. And I'll now switch to the role of an app creator and see what happens if I try to disable sign-in requirement for the users of my app. So in this particular account, as an app creator, I already started building a safety inspection app for buildings managed by my company, where my teammates can report issues straight from their devices. As I start sharing it with my users, I might think it will be easier for them to adopt the app if they don't have to sign in, so I'll try to disable it. Now I'll go ahead and save. Now, you will see that when I attempt to save this configuration, the required sign-in setting gets automatically reapplied with a message about the policy. Let's test out another policy I have on this account. To tighten the security further, you might want to consider adding a policy that limits who the apps can be shared with, restricting them, for example, to a specific domain. In this case, as an admin, I'll enable a policy that allows the apps to be shared only internally with users whose email address matches the company domain. It's also one of the preset templates. And I'll go ahead and set this policy as a warning. I added some custom failure message, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Let's see what happens if an app creator tries to share this app externally. Now, as an app creator, I'll go ahead and share this app with one of my vendors. Go ahead and hit save. Now, after sharing it, I see that my app has generated a warning. The warning is asking me to reconsider the choice of sharing it with an external user.
Well, policies are not the only way to assure the security and quality. Controlling who can deploy app is a powerful control mechanism too. In this scenario, app creators, probably not an IT guy, builds apps according to policies and share them with a limited number of users for testing. When they are ready to deploy, the app is transferred to a central team who can assure its quality and security and deploy it to a broader audience. Make sense, Kamila?
For sure. And this brings us to our last point, your role as the administrator, not only in governance, but also enablement. So at some point, you will notice two categories of apps crystallizing. One is a small scale self-service application, which is used by a small team. And then you'll notice large scale, high impact applications either used broadly within the company itself or shared publicly with a large number of external parties, perhaps customers. These are applications that if they fail, they will cause a painful outage. And it's at this scale that you will want to consider centralized management and having an application lifecycle management plan. So how does this help you? A lifecycle management plan accomplishes several goals. First, it should give you a template to recognize those critical apps that need special care. The simplest indicator would be a number of users. Once your app is used by a lot of people, it will cause significant headaches if it goes down. Second, it should plan for decentralized development because the risk of mission-critical apps being dependent on one person or even one team is just too high. Third, it should allow you to put more traditional controls on the deployment and publishing changes because the stakes of a buggy app are much different when you're deploying to thousands of app users. And lastly, a good app versioning process will allow you to control the changes in production and roll back quickly if necessary. Jacinto?
A business-critical app needs special care, and with AppSheet, we have the means to avoid disruptions in all the lifecycle. Use the version management and control different releases of the application as long as it needs to be updated. Ensure these critical apps have an extended service level. Do a follow-up of the usage with the audit log and its monitor performance. Take a proactive look at it on the admin point of view to anticipate and discover any surprise or risk.
Yeah, lastly, good adoption and development practices don't grow in a void. So building a rich and accessible centers of excellence will empower your team, speed up the adoption, and it will share best practices. First, identifying key steps in a successful adoption in your company will help you build resources that will help your app creators get there. Then providing robust, accessible training and onboarding will help them overcome that zero state and get to success quickly. A support community, both internal within your company or an external and public community like AppSheet, is an excellent way to collaborate and overcome challenges when they appear. Building a catalog of sample apps shares best practices and configurations while giving people a head start. And lastly, having an internal support system to handle questions and issues will help your team maintain momentum. Thank you so much for joining us, Jacinto.
Thank you, Kamila. It was great to be with you here today.
And thanks for joining us, everyone. I really hope that this session was a good introduction into how no-code tools can help you combat shadow IT. We also hope to see you in the platform. To learn more, check out our resources.